Man had TCG here, and who do we have?
Ruben, Penaranda.
And what did you do this past weekend?
I got second place at Ycs Bogota.
All right, so let's see what you played.
All right, so I played a Link Summoning deck featuring Prank Kid cards. So 3 plays. It's the best like Prank Kid because it lets you choose which one you want, and then Terraforming set rotation. So I played 50 cards, so I wanted to like have a way to get to a Prank Kid 80% of the time. So that goes on like the numbers I played. And then I played 8 like hard names, 2 of each. So I didn't want to play 3 of any of them because actually like hard drawing like multiple names sucks. And drawing like multiple of the field spells is at least better because it serves as a better follow-up since you don't have your hand clogged with monsters for Celestial Effect. And then this way you have 13 ways to names, which means you have an 82% chance to see 1 and around a 40% chance to see 2. So you're not really breaking on the prank kids too often. And if you see 2, you're able to make your Verite with any extender in your deck, so that way you can still end on Butler with DP and sometimes the Griffin on the field. And then these 2 you'll see serve as like defensive cards, which goes into like the rest of the math with the deck. So that goes for the Prank Kids normal summons. There was 13 of them. Then the best card in Yu-Gi-Oh right now, 3 right. If there's any hand trap that like could stop this outright, that card would be in every deck at like 1,000,000 copies. But this card's just a +3. It's insane. Going first, going second. Just the card you always want to see. It's like better than all your Prank Kids cards. Then 1 Foolish because it gets you to it. The 3 Enchantress. So sometimes drawing multiple Enchantress is not terrible because it's an extender, like I talked about with the Prank Kids cards. So it's kind of obvious. And then I decided to play 2 Fateful. So these are like 9 extenders that help your Prank Kids resolve every time. So if you draw any of these plus a Prank Kid, you're at least getting to resolve most of your combo, if not your full combo, ending on Verite with a Bow Wow. And a lot of people don't realize you're not really supposed to end on Butler. You're kind of supposed to go for the wash play with DP. So you set up infinite bodies so you really can't die, then you ensure you can kill your opponent on the next turn. Instead of trying to disrupt your opponent as much as possible, you make it impossible for your opponent to kill you. That way they're throwing their whole hand at you, and then they don't have as much recovery. They have 1 to 2 interruptions to 5 bodies and a DP coming back. You have Dasher Effect, and then you have all your Prank Kids because you put Meow back in your extra deck, so you get really far ahead. So those are 9 extenders, and then these are 2 more. I decided to play 2 Souls and 2 Illusions because this is the best one to draw with right if you don't have access to a Prank Kid because it lets you see 2 cards deeper into your deck and it applies so much pressure. It's also really good going second because it lets you make Dark. And then you'll see another card in the extra deck. I play Celine, so it allows you to extend into that. And then also being a search target off of Dark, so you can summon your Dark if it gets disengaged, you could crash it and then search this as an extender to either make your Verite or dig deeper into your deck. Sometimes you can get dead field spells out of your deck, and then since we play 2 Fateful, you can comfortably get rid of your first Fateful, so next turn on the follow-up, when you activate right again, you can get Fateful on the field and get access to your Griffin again. So I thought that was really important because I was going to be getting hand trapped a lot and ending on subpar boards, and then using my deck as more of a follow-up engine to kill my opponent. And then this card, because it summons DP and this deck revolves around that card as the main disruption and follow-up. Wish this card was at 3. This card's crazy. Whenever you hard draw it, you're really far ahead because you don't have to link your monsters into it, and like you can kind of play a little more recklessly with your effects because you don't need as many of them to resolve because it can hand trap you 2-3 times and you slap Fusion Destiny, you put back your Meow Meow, and then you have 1 disruption, maybe a hand trap that you draw, and then your 2 disruptions down to like 4 cards, they can't kill you. Then you kill them on the crackback, and then the last like pseudo extender is Griffin. It's not like it's the worst like extender to draw because you have to activate it before you normal summon your Prank Kid. But if you have this with like any Prank Kid, if it gets hand trapped at any point, you can at least make Verite. So it's at least allowing you to play through 1 hand trap. It's the worst one, but it at least lets you do something. So I'm pretty sure that's 3, 4, 7, and then we had 16 like hard extenders that helped you play through drawing any of your Prank Kids to make a Verite, so at least you have follow-up through that. And then for the defensive cards, there's a lot. Decided to play 3 Valor and 3 Bella as my 3 of hand traps. I thought Valor was the best one because you could use multiple in a turn. It's a level 1 that can turn into Link Rebo that I'm going to play. You're going to see in my extra deck that makes Dark, and it also makes Fiber, which I also played in my extra deck just as an additional way to kill. So it was like the most important one, and it's a spellcaster for Celine. So it was really, really versatile. It was really important, and I think the ability to use it multiple times in a chain or multiple times in a turn was really important. Unfortunately, Branded Lost got really popular before the tournament, so this card lost a lot of value versus a lot of the better Despia decks, but I thought it was really good still. Same thing with Bell. Bell stops a lot of the Despia cards and it stops Branded in red. So like drawing 2 of them is not terrible because you can Bell them on their turn and then on your turn when they set Branded in red. So it's the one like you didn't mind drawing 2 of. Same thing with Valor, and it's also a tuner to make Fiber. And then my 2 of hand traps, I played 2 Ash, 2 Nib. So Ash is broken because it stops Branded Fusion, but like besides that, you kind of don't want to like Ash anything else. Like you can Ash Enchantress and it's okay. Same thing with Bell. But it's not like the craziest, and like you're never ashing a Prank Kid. So like it only trades sometimes. It's not the greatest thing. And like same thing with Nib. It's not crazy in every matchup. And a lot of times it gets negated. It's great with like a second hand trap. So I wanted to like pair these and didn't want to max out on them because drawing multiples I didn't think was great. And I wanted Nib somewhere in my deck list, but I already had my side deck built before I finished my main deck. And I didn't have room for the extra Nib, so I had to put them in the main deck somewhere. And I thought just throw 2 in the main deck. If I draw it versus the Despia deck or any of the Old Lich decks, it'd be fine. I just sided out. I thought the rest of my deck had a really good matchup, so I need to find room to put it somewhere. At those, and then that's it for the monster hand traps. And then I played 2 Droplet and 2 Imperm. So my deck has a lot of 2-ofs because I want my deck to have the versatility of drawing a lot of cards off of pranks that would be live, and a lot of cards I could draw as my 6 cards to be live, and a lot of hand traps that I could trade off of souls or normal summon to make Verte. So there was a lot of utility with every spot, and that's why like you see a lot of these are at 2. And like you didn't want to play 3 Nib because you can't like normal summon it, and then like Ash, you already have 8 hand traps you can normal summon, and you don't want to draw multiples of these like I talked about. Bell had the more versatility of it. And same thing with like Imperm. It's not insane. It's just the fact that like you can use it as your 6th card, or it plays around talents, which is really important, and Call by the Grave. And then Droplet is just a crazy card, but same idea with Imperm. You can't use it if you draw it off of pranks, so I didn't want to max out on them and draw dead cards off of pranks because the deck relies on that sometimes being a hand trap to be able to survive. And then I also played Call by the Grave because this card's crazy. Going first or second, I think it needs to be in your deck. Card's going to be banned. And then Mystic Mine, that's what makes that rotation and terraforming defensive card. This card's crazy. It won me so many game 1s. It just applies a lot of pressure. Being able to go terraforming and start rotation for it when you're going second just makes your opponent force a response. And if they don't have it, you can just either pass infinitely until, if you know that deck doesn't typically main deck an out, or you can just pass until you have enough resources to kill them through their full board. And that's typically what I did, but sometimes my opponents would just scoop ahead of time because they realized they had no out, or I'd just be seeing too much information from their deck. And then the 5 bad cards on the deck: Celestial Dasher, Pranks, Pandemonium, and Draco Back. So that's it for the main deck, 50 cards. I wish I could play less, but the math supports 50 the best. Then for the extra deck, I got my 3 tokens, and then the bait stuff. So Washer, Butler, Meow Meow, Bow Wow, and the 2 Doodle. So this is like what you want your opponent to stop, because these cards like are the fake pressure. They apply a lot of like card advantage, but they don't apply like insane pressure themselves, especially not like on the first turn unless you get to Butler. And if like you're getting to just Butler, it's like the weakest of your disruptions and doesn't really allow you a lot of follow-up since we don't play that many prank kid names. And if you're setting up Butler as your only disruption, you want to leave the Meow Meow in the graveyard, so it's at least 2. So like these are just to get like hand traps out of your opponent's hand. So the term I like to use, they're gumblaring themselves. So they just discard cards out of their hand and allow it, so like they have less cards to play on their turn. So that's what these cards are for. And then for the actual like good part of the deck, we have DP, and then Link Karibo and Link Spider. These are for the Pranking token and enemy level 1. It can turn into a Dark, so I can make the Dark Charmer. And this is for a Nib token, the Pranks token, and also the Adventure token. So it can turn into a monster for Verte. That's it for the Link 1s. And then Link 2s, they're the best cards in the game. Verte to summon DPE. Fiber, because you can make it off of any push when you draw a tuner off a Dasher, and that way you can automatically apply pressure with a Link 3. Or a Link 4, you can go into Charmer off of it too, because you can summon a Veiler and make the Link Karibo. Speaking of Charmer, play this one. These are like the other Link 2s. Like both of these give you access to either any Link 3 or any Link 4, because we play Celine. This card's like really, really cool because either of these makes them, and then a lot of times you can just hard make Celine if you have like Enchantress and 2 Prank Kids, or like Souls and 2 Prank Kids, like post combo if you just have extra bodies on the field. And then this turns into any Link 4, which obviously access code, so this allows any of these to go into Celine, to go into access code, and then you apply a lot of pressure without normal summoning on your second turn by using the Dasher effect, and then you can clear the field before using your normal summon for your additional prank kid, before using your DPE effect, and like you can use that along the way also before you go for the access code push. You can clear so many cards, and also gives you like an additional attribute in the graveyard to banish. And then the last card, Unicorn, because I think you need it a lot of the times to out a card like Masquerade, to out like me or Jay, just like random cards that you can't destroy. Like I had to out Malicious Bane because it can't be destroyed by battle or card effect this weekend. That was funny, so I had to unicorn that. That's it for the extra deck. All these cards were insane. I really recommend everyone play them. Then for the side deck, this is where like I had a lot of the spice, I think, for the deck, but not a lot of people have been thinking about these cards. So one of my favorite cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! I play Mind Control. This card's just crazy going second. It's a card that like forces a response 100%. And if you hold this card first and play into your opponent's board, you can use Mind Control to actually crack it or win the game. Like if your opponent leaves a DP on the field to play around Dark because they know you play it as a Pranked player, you can just Mind Control, take their DP and link away with it, and then you just cleared a lot of their follow-up and future disruptions, and you can use the same thing to either force the DP or take a Mirror Jade and link away with it, and that way it won't trigger, or force cards in that aspect. And you can also use this card to take like Winda and link it off like Mechaba. You can take Lord. I just thought this card was like so versatile. You can even take like Pranked monsters your opponent controls, like if they just leave it on the field, and then be able to like normal summon one of your own. And that way you can go into Doodle if your Meow's gone. That's something that came up a lot in testing, so I thought that was really cool. Then the 2 other copies of mine, and then played other cards for our field spend. We played the Metaverse, and then 3 Zombie World. So post-board, I wanted to side into like a pseudo field spell deck because we had access to like our natural 3 field spells, and we have 3 more ways to get to field spells with like 1 Metaverse, 1 set rotation, and 1 terraforming. So like it gave us access to Zombie World, which is just like an auto win in the Flunder matchup if they don't have an out. And like it doesn't matter if they summon an Empin, you'll eventually be able to out it with Draco back or with DP summon in defense position, and then you kill them because they just can't tribute summon, and it doesn't matter how many little guys they swing with you. They're eventually going to have to go for a Zeus play, and they're going to have to waste a lot of resources to do that. And then Metaverse is just another way to get to it, and a way to get to it slower so they don't expect it. And then it's a way to get to mine when you go first. You don't necessarily always have 3 copies of mine in your deck going first, and also depending on the matchup, and if you expect them to put in back row destruction or not for the mine, if they've seen it game 1 or not. So the deck has a lot of interesting play depending on how many cards your opponent's seen. Since we're playing a lot of 2-0s and like certain cards your opponent may not expect game 1, we're able to adjust to that in the side deck. So this is kind of like the field spells, then an additional defensive card. And then for back row, we played 2 Lightning Storm and then 3 Twin Twister. So I wanted to play Twin Twister because it's a chainable, and it's able to get 2 back row, and it's able to hit the specific floodgates, which is really important. And it can also be done in the draw phase or the standby phase to play around the Dreaming Town. It plays around Pandemonium if you ever really see yourself siding in the mirror. I don't personally, but people have done it to me. And it's able to hit the field spell as well instead of Cosmic. And I didn't want to pay life to activate Cosmic, even though Cosmic plays around the Heavenly Dragon Sphere. This card trades more value because it hits 2 back row. And if they have that card, I feel like I can Draco back spam a card. Once they flip a back row, I can like Twin Twister target the specific floodgate that's beating me, and then it could also hit like a Conquistador or Haquero that they're trying to flip. And then Lightning Storm was in here because it was the last slot I needed to figure out, and it was either going to be this or Evenly because I wanted a card that hit the front row and the back row. This card was just the best at doing it because I didn't have to waste my battle phase, and then my opponent didn't get to choose to like keep 1 card. I could just clear the one that was the specific issue, and I just think this card applies a lot of pressure. And it was really good into back row and like front row decks, like I was saying. And then card of the weekend, I think, Talents. This card won me an insane amount of games. I should have main decked this card. Me and Chris were talking about this all weekend. This card should have definitely been in my main deck. He main decked it, and it was insane. I'm probably going to put this in the main deck over Nibiru going forward. Just everyone playing so many hand traps and just going second. Your opponent always has a response during your main phase. So your activate Talents, either take a card, draw 2 because you have so many extenders or like bombs. Like if you have a normal summon, you can just like draw into a prank hit after you like crack their field. Or if you haven't used a Brave card or Souls or Fusion Destiny, you just end up drawing into one of those bombs after clearing the field, and then you just win the game. This card was insane. So that's pretty much it.
All right, so there wasn't a lot of coverage for this, but you had an insane top cut matchups. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I have them written down. I don't want to butcher any of them, so I'm going to pull that up real quick. Let's see here. In top 32, I played against Pat. He was playing Despia. I won the roll. I won game 1. I didn't draw too great. Throughout all of top 32 to the finals, I didn't draw right kid once whenever I went first. And anytime I went first, I either only ended on Griffin or I only ended on DP or maybe both. It was really rough throughout Top Cut, but the deck building that I had and the theory I had for like just playing so I don't die and then winning on the next turn really got me a lot of the wins. Right, versus top 16, I played against a Thunder player from Panama. I won the roll 1-2-1. In top 8, I played against Paolo. He won the roll. I won 2-0. Game 1, I drew really nice. I drew Called by the Grave and Nibiru to bait out his Griffin, and then I Called by the Grave his Scythe. And then I was able to OTK him through Ogre Crow. And then game 2, he went Enchantress. I belled it, and then he went for a small DP play. And then I had a Nibiru droplet in my hand with double right. I top decked a Veiler, so he discarded the Token Collector, so I waited for him to summon the Token Collector to drop the Token Collector in the DP. And then I cleared his whole field, ended on a Griffin, left it so on his next turn, all he could do was access code clear my field and leave on no disruptions. And I just flipped the top card of my deck, hoping it was a prank kid, and it was placed, and I killed him. Then versus in top 4, I played against Andres Torres. I won the roll. I lost game 1 and then won games 2 and 3. It was a really interesting matchup. I drew really poorly those games, but I was able to grind it out because he didn't draw too great. And game 3, and then in the finals, I played versus Chris James. I won the roll. I lost game 1. I drew very poorly. I drew I drew set rotation, terraforming, Draco back, a prank kid, and another card that wasn't playable, and he opened Ash Bell plus Aliber, so I just completely lost that game. Game 2, I didn't draw great. I just ended on Griffin DPE, but the way I sequenced it enough with Ash in my hand, I was able to stop him, so he just ended on Aliber in the field and a set card, and I killed him the next turn with Access Code. And Game 3, we both didn't open too well. I was able to hand trap him, and I played a little bit, and then he summon limited me. By the time I outed it, I got into a position where I was going to out his Masquerade, and instead of bouncing it with Draco back to play around Aliber in the graveyard, I popped it with Access Code, and then the first time he protected it with opening because he didn't realize he had Aliber in the graveyard because we both checked the graveyard a couple times that turn. And then once he banished the opening, he realized he had another one, so when I popped it again, triggered the Aliber, negated my Access Code, I couldn't kill him. And on the crackback, he top decked the third Aliber to search for the third Branded Fusion after ITP popped the first one, and then Griff negated the second one. So overall, great event. I had an amazing time in Colombia, but I'm really excited to go to Mexico this weekend. Hopefully, when this deck list goes out, there'll be a first place deck list coming out at the same time. But yeah, I want to give a huge shout out to Kamal. He built the deck with me the night before I left, and then everyone I've talked theory with, everyone from South Florida, everyone I stayed with. You guys all know who you are. I would name you, but then I'd forget someone, and I didn't want to leave anyone out. It was just an amazing time. I know Mexico is going to be so much fun. I'm having a great time playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Also, shout out to Jerry, amazing sponsor, and the team, Daily Grind, helping me get to all these events. I couldn't do it without them.
All right, thank you, and good luck in Mexico.
Thank you.